What's trending here? Basketball, the NBA finishing it up before the All-Star break. Again, we'll be doing our show tomorrow in Chicago, where the All-Star game is. Memphis beat Portland last night, 111-104. Damian Lillard, 20 points, 10 assists. So that's the stats of the game. The story of the game is driving to the basket late in the fourth quarter. Damian Lillard pulled up lame. He's going to get an MRI on his groin. He said post-game that the injury will keep him out of both the three-point contest and the All-Star game. Said he's looking forward to going and to being part around the festivities, but he will not be participating in the festivities. The league has yet to announce who will replace him. In the NFL, Jameis Winston, remember the 30 touchdowns, 30 interception guy? Could it get better? Jameis Winston underwent LASIK surgery. Said he didn't want to count out any option that he had and that could possibly help him with the game that he loves so much. It's unclear as to what degree, if any, vision has affected Winston's accuracy. We all know he's a squinter, right? I mean, he's a nearsighted. He's been nearsighted, and you see him squinting all the time. And he got LASIK, which is interesting to me. Is like you'd have thought if that was a problem, he'd have got it a while ago. He's been in the league 4 or 5 years. He threw 30 interceptions in 2019, but also threw for a league high over 5,100 yards and 33 touchdowns. His 19,737 passing yards are seventh most of any quarterback in the league, which led Twitter to go all over the next 30 for 30 is to 2020. Vision, get it? 2020. 20.
I was going for the loser game show
30
sound.
for 30,
Yeah,
20.
thank you, yeah.
2020 vision is 2020.
Oh, I get it, because 30 picks, 30 touchdowns, 2020
for the
vision.
vision. You want to rethink that now, Cliff? You want to rethink that now?
No, he definitely doesn't.
Staying in the NFL, Myles Garrett was reinstated by the NFL. Remember, he met with Roger Goodell, and this is coming off the indefinite suspension when he pulled off the helmet of Mason Rudolph of the Steelers and swung it at him and hit him. Browns general manager Andrew Berry says, we welcome Myles back to our organization with open arms. I bet you do. We know he's grateful to be reinstated, eager to put the past behind him and continue to evolve and grow as a leader, saying all the right things. New coach, new season. Myles Garrett will be on the field week 1. That is What's Trending.
What's Trending is brought to you by Redbox. Don't miss award-nominated Ford versus Ferrari starring Matt Damon and Christian Bale. Rent it now at Redbox for under $2 a night.
It's Golic and Wingo on ESPN Radio and ESPN2. Jason Fitz in for Trey with Mike Golic Jr. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. All phone guests join us on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And let's get to some Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. And it comes off of what Mike just said about Myles Garrett being reinstated by the NFL. It raises a couple of questions. I think people remember that it was an indefinite suspension. We now know that the term indefinite means 6 games in this instance. So it's a 6-game suspension. Also of note, Myles did meet with the commissioner a couple of days ago, so we don't know sort of what that meeting was like. And
I'm sorry. I'm sure it was. I'm sorry. It'll never happen again. I was wrong. You were right. You're good looking. I'm not. You know, the whole thing.
I'm just trying to present both sides. I'll say it. To me, it felt like the suspension was short. I thought it was going to be longer than 6 games, but now we know. We have this definitive statement. The thing that I keep going back to, though, is if the name on that quarterback's jersey had been Patrick Mahomes or Tom Brady or Ben Roethlisberger, would it have been 6 games? And so that's the precedent now set if it ever happens, God forbid, again.
I think it's interesting looking at this because I think the use of indefinite was more a precautionary measure, right? Like, we were all a little thrown off because we really don't see things like this happen very often. And I know we had the example of someone doing it towards Richie Incognito, but we haven't seen it connect like this. And that's just a difference in this situation. And so the indefinite use, and we were talking about this before the show, was smart because it gave you time to sort of step back and say, all right, let's take a deep breath. There are people calling for him to get arrested, people tweeting assault and stuff like that. But we've got to get through that period and go, all right, what do we need to do? We need to make sure that this guy wasn't on the field for the rest of the 2019 season. And that was the priority. And the indefinite was definitely to make sure, hey, if the Browns, who have an outside chance at a playoff run, get there, we are not going to have him on the field there. Right. And it could have been longer. But now you kind of got backed into this place where, all right, the NFL, and I'm sure time-wise, it's felt like it's been a long time. Time has passed, but now you have a number attached to it. We know how complicated it gets when that happens to the NFL.
At some point, there was going to get a number, right? He was going to get reinstated, so eventually we were going to have a number. But the number turned out to be somewhat arbitrary because they did have an outside chance to make the playoffs. So what if they did and lost in the first round? So he'd have been suspended then 7 games. So that would have been the mark. There are some people that said he should have been suspended 8 games, 2 games into the season. So then 8 games would have been the mark. It's whatever number you felt would have been the right number. And the fair question is brought up, what if this happened in week 4? Would he been done for the rest of the season, or would now that first-time offense be a 12-game suspension? I think they did the right thing to say indefinite, stay off the field, let's everybody calm down, and then let's figure this thing out. And I think that's what they were. That's why it was indefinite. It was because of the possibility of them making the playoffs that they couldn't say 6 games and then he's back for the playoffs. You're done for the rest of the year. You don't make the playoffs at 6 games. You make the playoffs and actually win a couple games. It could be 8 games. Could be 7 games. So they waited to see that. I think everybody thought he was going to be back at the start of this season. So whatever number was put to that, and some people don't think it's enough, and some people think it's just right. But I do think it was kind of an arbitrary thing on when it happened in the season.
Yeah, do you guys think it was enough? Because I think about it like this as we sit here now. If it had happened earlier in the season and they would have said, we're suspending him for the rest of the year, I probably would have gone, okay, I understand that.
Yep.
And even as I sit here now and they say, we're reinstating him and it only turns out to be a 6-game suspension, I go, all right, well, that doesn't bother me a ton either in this situation. And maybe it's colored by the fact that Myles Garrett, this was a total outlier. Outside of, a couple instances, I guess I shouldn't say that, a couple instances leading up where he had late hits, penalties, and things like that maybe.
But he's not Vontaze perfect.
Yeah,
Let's be clear
I guess that's the thing. It's not
perfect.
the pass like that. I don't know what's making me feel like this.
I thought it would go into next season, and that's something, Stephen A. yesterday on First Take echoed. He thought it would at least go into the beginning of next season. I will say one thing that yesterday, First Take, Your Take, which you can hear on these very airwaves from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern, the listeners pointed out yesterday, and I think there's some validity to it. The advantage to the NFL getting it done now is by coming out and getting this decision made today. They get it made before the scouting combine, before the draft, before OTAs, before the regular season. By the time we get to next season, it'll be a blip on the radar of anybody's attention span going into it. So the NFL effectively buries it on a day where the Astros today are going to get up and speak about cheating. We talked yesterday about how long do these conversations go. The NFL buried this in a way that by the time we get to the regular season, I don't even know that Myles Garrett's suspension
and they
will still
should.
be
I
part
mean,
of the
there was no reason not to have the meeting now. What longer were you waiting for? I mean, he was out the whole time. The whole postseason went on. We're in the offseason. Why wait? Meet with him, see what he has to say. We kind of know what he's going to have to say, and then decide whether you're going to reinstate him or not. They had to have a number in mind, I would imagine. But it is an interesting thought. What if it happened in week 14? What if it happened in week 12? Would they only been a 4-game? Would they have gone in then to next year? They had to have some kind of gauge of a number in mind.
And it makes you wonder what the baseline was, because if they had gone 4 games into the season, would anyone have raised hell over it?
No.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
I think we all would have looked at it and gone, it's fine. And so when you look at that, also the difficulty of these things is, and I keep coming back to it because the NFL's had to put a number onto it, when you get to things like domestic violence that have a suspension number in the NFL of a floor, 6 games with room for more or less.
Right.
But when that magic number is 6, and now all of a sudden the next time that happens and it's, now I can equate this with that, it always makes for a dicey visual. And so I don't know, but you wonder if something like that is in the back of their minds of, if we suspend this guy for 8, but then someone is accused of some sort of domestic violence or assault,
the minimum
and
is
they're suspended
6.
for 6,
Yeah.
now all of a sudden you've got a visual that I think we've all learned is pretty hard to tolerate.
That Straight Talk Wireless, everything for less, only at Walmart. In the meantime, there was big college football news yesterday. Michigan State officially hired their next football head coach, but the hire has raised a storm of different thoughts about some of his past comments and about some NCAA regulations. We'll break it all down after this.
All right, time for a little bit of straight talk here. You know what a full court press is in basketball, right? Full defensive coverage with no holes. Well, that's kind of the coverage you get with Straight Talk Wireless. It runs on America's best network, same as the big carriers, but for a lot less. It's $45 a month. Gets you the unlimited plan with 25 gigs of high-speed data, then 2G, saving you up to half the cost of the big carriers. No contract, full court coverage, half the cost. Straight Talk Wireless, everything for less. Savings may vary. Check out terms and conditions at straighttalk.com. Back after this, Golic and Wingo.